Okay. Welcome to this week's Washington State Senate Legislative Update, and my guest is Senator Judy Warnick from Moses Lake.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you.
Nice to see you. Glad you got to get back to Olympia.
Yeah, it's strange, but it's nice to be here because the strange part is there's hardly anybody here, and no public, which is disappointing. About half of our caucus is here, but the other half is attending virtually, so from home.
Yeah. Anyone who's ever been to any kind of conference knows that there's an awful lot of good communication that happens in the hallway.
Exactly, and at the desk, especially reaching out to the other side of the aisle. I've had a couple of really good conversations with people from the other side of the aisle because I can walk over to their desk and talk to them. We have to mask up and we have to be tested every day, but I can talk in person to them, and you can get a lot done that way.
A much better way to operate.
Yeah.
And speaking of operating in what is still a state of emergency, coming up on a 2-year anniversary on February 28th. Actually, the anniversary would be February 29th. So I'm hoping that doesn't mean this goes on until the next leap year.
Oh my gosh, we have to wait another 4 years? No.
So anyway, coming up on that, there's a couple pieces of emergency powers reform that have been filed. I know one of them was one that you were a co-sponsor of. I can't tell if that one has gone anywhere, and the other one seems moving.
Yeah, the 5943 was the bill that we would have liked to have seen. We called it the Balance Act, sponsored by Senator Linda Wilson, but it was bipartisan. We had other people from the other side of the aisle sign on to it, but it has not moved at all. And so that bill had both in session and out of session components to it, but it did not move. So we have 5909 is still in play. That's the from the other side of the aisle. It's in rules, so waiting for to be pulled from rules onto the floor to be able to vote on it. Still being negotiated somewhat, but we talked about a 90-day termination by agreement of all four corners in that bill if we're not in session. And if we're in session, which was a little different to me, and I think they're working on that, but no mechanism for the legislative review or termination. So I think we just would have to have a bill dealing just with that particular state of emergency. But it would allow, if we're not in session, it would allow indefinitely orders to continue, these proclamation orders to continue, unless all four corner leaders, so that's the leader from the House, the Senate, from both parties, would agree to terminate them. And so we put it back on the leaders, but it wouldn't be a vote of the full legislature. So
I think there's a couple of terms that are confusing to people, and one is the four corners, which just means the majority leader in the House, the minority leader in the House, majority leader in the Senate, minority leader in the Senate. So then you have two representatives from each side involved, which is from each caucus, which provides some balance.
So think of Senator Billig from Spokane. He's the majority leader in the Senate. And I warned him I was going to be talking to you this morning, so he knows. But we also have a minority leader, Senator Braun. And so those are part of the two of the four corners. So
well, I was doing a little bit of research last night, and Senator Billig had said last year that some kind of reform needed to happen. So I know he's being thoughtful about this.
Well, yeah, and rumor is because there should be a 2/3 vote on this. Rumor is that they are going to need our help to get this passed. It's not just it can't be a partisan at the end, partisan bill. Yeah. So
One of the other, it's a pair of terms that people are confused about is that the governor has the power under the emergency powers to waive a statute to say, okay, we're not going to require renewals to happen within 1 year. You have 6 months grace because we don't have the offices open. So they can waive a requirement. And then the other piece, and those things that are waived are what right now the Four Corners has to agree to extend. And I know there's been some disgruntlement from the public. Is that why are people agreeing? Why are the Four Corners agreeing to extend those waivers? Well, most of those waivers are waiving red tape. And so that's one category of thing, but it's the proclamations, and that's the other piece that 5909 addresses. And those are things that the governor just decides on his own. And would you like to see 5909 strengthened? Because it looks like it's a little bit.
Yeah, and that's where the negotiations are happening. I would like to see it a bit stronger so that we as representatives of the public, and not that the governor isn't, and not that the Four Corners are not, but we have a closer connection a lot of times to the public just because of the nature of our jobs. The governor is overwhelmed with the amount of people that are writing to him, I'm sure, so he doesn't get that message, that same pipeline, if you will, from the public. And he admits, yeah, I've got that power. I'd like to keep it until the end of the pandemic. So when do we see the end of the pandemic? It's over 700 days. Like you said, almost 2 years at the end of this month. Senator Braun and I had a direct conversation with him as leaders of the Senate Republicans. He wouldn't give us an answer. He said, it's all based on science, and when the numbers go down, it's all based on numbers. So we are pushing as much as we can, but I think whatever we do with these emergency powers bill, that we need to have more input from the legislature itself. So
one of the things the governor has frequently said is that he has consulted the legislature. Do you feel that you've been consulted?
No. Now, I'm fairly new, just since November, to my position as caucus chair, which is number 2 in the Republican Senate leadership. So last week was the first time I spoke directly with him as part of the leadership team. But from what I understand, there hasn't been a lot of consultation with members of our caucus who could help with that. The lead on our healthcare committee, the lead on any of the committees that might address some of these proclamations. So I think he's trying to keep it fairly close, but he does keep saying he's based on science and based on numbers. But he did say, I believe it was just yesterday morning, that, okay, we're going to consider taking masks off in public outside. So football games. Our answer to that is, I think most people didn't realize they were supposed to be wearing their masks at football games. It's could be an option, but you look at the football stadiums on TV, you look at the audience, nobody's wearing their masks. So he's going to let us take those masks off outdoors. But we're pushing as hard as we can to get him to look at what's happening in other parts of the nation, lift those mandates, and even OSPI. Chris Reichdahl, the superintendent, has said it's time to start taking the masks off in schools. Didn't give us a date, but he is pushing to get the masks off those children. So, and I can relate. Now that I'm in Olympia, we have the rules that if we're in the Capitol building, if we're on the floor, we're supposed to wear these N95 masks. That's difficult to do for hours at a time. It just doesn't make a person feel very good if you're breathing through a mask all day long. So I can relate to those poor kiddos that have to wear a mask all day long in school. So I'm ready to have them take them off.
I just wonder if he realizes to what extent that's basically been ignored in many parts of the state for many months now.
Well, I'm not going to say anything.
I know, and I kind of, what I fear is what that does to civil society when we get in the habit of walking by signs that say such and such is a rule. It sort of turns all laws into guidelines. This is not a good development.
Well, and that's, some people would argue that's what that is, but the laws are guidelines. But that's for a different debate.
Yeah, different debate. Okay. One other subject I wanted to ask you about before you have to get back to work is, do you have a few comments on redistricting? I know that Lincoln County 10 years ago landed in your district as the far eastern end, and now we've landed into now we're moving south. But your district really took a lot of, has a big shakeup.
It does, not as much as the 12th district, but we go farther to the south and the east, into Yakima more. And I was so disappointed. I fought the whole time to keep Lincoln County. That's where my roots are. My great-grandparents homesteaded in Lincoln County back in the 1800s. I was just so excited to get that county, but we did lose that. We lost more of Grant County, and the lines are drawn so differently. And we had a debate yesterday on the Voting Rights Act bill, trying to get lines or language in that bill that would line up with the redistricting statutes. You should not draw lines based on race, based on political persuasion. Couldn't get that into the Voting Rights bill. So it's all kind of tied together. That Voting Rights Act is very concerning. We didn't have anybody on our side do that. And that does tie in with the redistricting, because as you know, there may be further effort to create a minority majority district in central Washington, specifically in Yakima. And my argument for that is minorities are already voting. They're registering in high numbers, and they are being elected. My seatmate, Alex Ibarra, is prime example. He's never run for office. He was appointed and he ran, and the constituents of his and mine voted him back in. And
I've enjoyed getting to know Representative Ibarra, and I think it's just kind of funny that you don't count as a minority if you're a Republican, but that's a different.
And conservative, you know.
And conservative, yeah. And he's not from Yakima, so.
Yeah, there you go. So, but it's very concerning what's happening, that the attempt to keep a majority, a Democrat majority from now on forever, because if we pass that law, that they have the Voting Rights Act the way they have written it. And you know, I think, and I did use my my district as an example. I have a friend who was elected to the city council in Moses Lake, a woman, Hispanic, never ran for office. She beat an incumbent. And so, you know, it's happening, but she's conservative. I've known her for years. She's very conservative. So I think if they're expecting all people of color to be non-conservative, I think they're, you know, mistaken. And it's not going to work quite the way they think it's going to work.
Yeah, I don't think that superficial identities are as important as political philosophies and values.
Exactly.
That's going to come out in the next 10 years. So. Yeah,
and we have some, you know, I can't talk about them now, but we have some people who are interested in running for office who are not the typical white male Republican. Okay.
Yeah. So. You know, I've had women representing me in the legislature my entire voting life, I think, just about. So starting with Kathy McMorris Rogers. So
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Judy, it's been great to talk with you this morning, and I will let you get on with the rest of your day. And thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it. Hope to see you back in district soon, before they change it.
Before you
Thank
change,
you.
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Delaney. All right. Bye.